Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we did the mission to protect Omicron Arc while he activated some cogitator on the Martyr. In between missions, in between episodes rather, I ended up changing a skill, or changing one of my abilities to Firestorm, which actually, as we say that, I'm gonna switch it over for both. And then I quickly grabbed passives. There we go. I grabbed just flat range damage. We're going to see how that works. I contemplated going more through heat, but for now, I think we'll be fine. That would be useful applying burn, but every ability seems to apply burn already, so I don't know how far I want to go through the heat tree. If I want to grab the last one or just say forget it. But let's jump back into the mission.
Inquisitor.
So I've seen a bit of discussion on the matter of, like, with the tabletop game, proxies and kind of counts as stuff, you know, doing a bunch of kit bashes or what have you. Huh, that's not bad. Does bump my warp heat up a bit, but if I get that skill that reduces it by 5%, that'll be a nice boon to me. But the proxies and counts as, I've seen people, especially when it comes to proxies, people have a lot of problems with it, which I do understand, you know. If you're doing competitive or doing events, you shouldn't be able to use proxies. You know, it seems to be in those cases that it's people who want to chase a meta, but they don't have the money for the proper units. And, you know, I get it. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time, still to a degree too. I know what it's like to not be rocking meta stuff. Hell, to a degree, I go out of my way to not use meta decks in that.
Inquisitor, I've just completed my diagnostic meditations
and
reviewed the data. We can safely rule out the infection as the cause of your hallucinations.
God, everybody just keeps talking. But when it comes to competitive stuff, you just shouldn't get proxies. If you want to run, you know, when Iron Hands were popular, if you want to run Iron Hands, buy Iron Hands. It feels cheap, and it's a bit unfair to people who did buy them. You know, oh, I spent this much money to actually have this army, and then some dude just plops down a bunch of unpainted, generic Space Marines. They're just like, these are Iron Hands now. I get having, if you have the money, having a unpainted set of, you know, an army, and then never painting them and playing with friends being like, hey, I'm going to run these guys as, you know, Raven Guard. We're going to see how they play with this setup. And then it's, you know, it's understandable. Everybody kind of agrees, yeah, this is theory crafting. That's 100% fine. But competitive, nah. I think that's a problem.
Inquisitor, as per your request.
Granted,
Classifying data limbs on this day.
the part of the problem stems from having to constantly re-release, like, oh, we're doing, you know, 9th edition, we're doing probably 10th edition, I guess, in a year and a half. And it just gets real tedious. Because then it's like, well, I don't know if I want to buy this army. Like with Iron Hands. Iron Hands started popping off real good, and then they got nerfed. Arc, literally. sitting here and interrupting his own dialogue because I'm just blowing through here. But I get being hesitant to buy these armies. I mean, that's kind of why I see some people do like Tabletop Simulator, because you can play 40K through that game. I think it's one of the workshop mods. And honestly, I think it's a great way to do theory crafting for players who don't have the money to flat out buy another army. You know, you get your testing, you can see what works. Wow, he got bodied. But it allows you to do all the testing and whatnot that you need, and you can then decide, do I want to buy this? Do I want to buy everything I need for this, or am I good with my existing armies? But I do think it's a problem when it's like, if it's not the same faction especially, you know, here's a bunch of unpainted Tyranids, they're Chaos Demons now. That's a bit cheap. Just use Tyranids if you're off meta for a while.
Correct.
Deal.
Finally approaching the gates of the research cloister. Currently under quarantine.
I think 9 times out of 10, you can actually,
Far away.
unless a meta is absolutely broken, you can counter it.
7.
Wait, did I get a level off that? Yes, okay. Yeah, we'll slap another one in for the heat damage. I like the ability, that was pretty good. But yeah, I think my opinion on that, on at least proxying during competitive and events is just don't do it. Theory craft elsewhere, you're fine. You know, if you're at your hobby shop and you're just playing with some friends, yeah, do whatever. Who cares? But if you're trying to actively get people in or do tournaments, you know, don't be a dick. Actually, because I think a part of my idea got cut off as things were going on. I do think part of the problem, though, is, yeah, the releasing of new editions so frequently and the cost. If these miniatures had their cost dropped, because I know they put, like, perceived value onto them,
In effect. Subject 872K
and I think that's a bit BS,
in lockdown.
because I think you need to realistically acknowledge perceived value is a BS concept. You know, I can perceive something. Great example here. Perceived value. How much do you think an NFT is worth? You know, some butt ugly picture of a bored ape. How much is that to you? $5, $500, $5,000, $50,000, $500,000? To me, it is not worth the money I pay in the electric bill to see the thing. It is not worth the, you know, kilobytes of data that it's made with. But perceived value, some people think it's worth, you know, a house. And that's the problem of putting perceived value cost on anything.
Area in lockdown.
Especially with, you know, I mean NFTs obviously, but with these miniatures. Perceived value. Oh yeah, Iron Hands could be worth a ton, but the second they fall out of meta, do you think people are willingly going to pay the same price for them? Oh hey, you want this heavily nerfed faction, or this faction that hasn't gotten any support in, you know, 2 years? No. Why would I pay good money when I can buy miniatures for an army that is supported? Perceived value is a joke. Especially when, I've said this before, you can look at other miniature games and get far more for far less. Or like some people have done, and just start 3D printing stuff.
In effect. Subject 872K.
You know, I'm not gonna tell you not to do it. I'm not your mother. If Games Workshop wants to make money, they need to make things a little cheaper to incentivize people. Or other ideas, like I've said, you do the little miniature game with, you know, little expansions that give you a couple miniatures here and there for, you know, 15-20 bucks. So that you have a bunch of replayability as the board game, and then you have the miniatures to use in other things. And also, stop making things limited run. I swear, the sheer number of times they're like, oh, we're gonna do a limited run of this basic unit, and you're like, why? It's just like, oh yeah, because we feel like it. No, don't do that. That's what bad guys do. Don't be a bad guy. This is the best way of destroying these. Where do we have to go?
An army of loyal warriors immune to the warp, ready to conquer the Immaterium. Once you would have embraced the idea.
I'm not the same person anymore.
I pray to the Emperor that you are.
I understand where proxying comes in. I just think there's etiquette to it. And then the other bit was counts as stuff. Effectively, hey, this kit-bashed unit is this. 9 times out of 10, I don't see a problem with that. I think if you're going to kit bash, you need to at least try to make things accurate. So for instance, if I'm using one picture I saw was this guy made essentially Chaos Space Marines, but they have Beastmen heads. Which would make sense, you know, Khorne would probably turn some people pretty bestial with mutation, so it fits. All the weapons on them were like power axes and stuff, or no, it was chain axes, and it was all appropriate to their loadout. You know, they replaced, I think, a Blood Crusher with a different animal. I think it was like a Thunder Cat or something. Some big animal, but it counted as a, I think a Blood Crusher? Yeah, I think a Blood Crusher. And I don't see a problem with that, because that is something you can say flat out, hey, you can see this is still, you know, a chain axe or whatever. The only difference here is the head and what the mount looks like. But you know good and well what this all is. If it's like something really weird, like, oh, I'm gonna use Stormcast Eternals, but every miniature is actually an Imperial Guardsman, those are times I'd say, no, do something better. Or, you know, hey, all these guys have bolters, but actually this is supposed to be a plasma gun squad. Things like that, where you need to kind of be a little courteous to people so that they understand what they're fighting against. Otherwise your match is going to be just slowed down to no end with your opponent constantly going, okay, what was this unit again? And while some people will be honest, I can imagine there will be unscrupulous types who take advantage of it and end up going, oh, that's a, instead of maybe it is a guy with a bolter, you're like, oh, it's a plasma gun. Let me just roll plasma gun damage. Oh, you died. You know, effectively finding a slimy way to cheat. And people will do it. People cheat at the dumbest things. You know, there are dudes out there who are just so weird. They'll steal a balloon on Free Balloon Day.
No demonic presence detected. Lockdown deactivated.
Good one.
There seems to be demonic presence left and right of me, my guy. Yeah, there are just some people who... they're just dicks. And anything to kind of mitigate the chance of them doing something like that, I'm for. And like I said, it's a courtesy matter. Be nice to people. Don't make playing a game, especially like 40K, any more difficult than it already is. Well, that was cool. Two and duo at the same time. 2-0. 2 contraband tech shrines. Or contraband servo skulls. That's a nice find. Oh no, the chest! No! I missed it! No! I was too distracted. Oh well. Sucks I missed out on that. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.